Hey everybody, this is Stan Wanglund, and welcome to Just Thinking 2022. I think this is episode number 9 that we're going to be doing today, and it should be an interesting one for a variety of reasons. It actually has to do with the controversy between Joe Rogan and Neil Young. I kind of wanted to weigh in on that from maybe a little bit of a different perspective than some people might on that, and. It's not a 14-hour show or anything else like that, going over every idiosyncrasy that both of these fellows might have, or the position. I think I don't think it's as complicated as we make it out to be in some ways. But anyway, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But before I do, thank you for those people who are watching the show. We are starting from the ground floor and working our way up, but. I have a lot of interesting shows out there and interesting ideas to talk about in the future. So, I've been getting some feedback from a few people, and they seem to be enjoying the show. So, this is a process that builds gradually. So I'm having a ball doing it. So thanks if you've been listening to the shows and putting up with me with different things. But if you like the show, give it a like and hit the subscribe button. If you subscribe and you don't like a particular show that day, well, there'll be plenty more. Just just go over it and don't listen to it. But I think we'll have plenty of good stuff on here. And again, my plan, so that is to do 25 to 50 shows, and which is not difficult for me, and to move up to the next series of platforms, which have larger audiences, and so on and so forth. So this is, I'm not going to say it's a test marketing kind of thing, because it's not. But this is shaping the kind of experience I want, which is very raw, very down home, and that's the kind of a niche that I want to do. Just like Joe Rogan started his thing. I'm no Joe Rogan, but I think I have some interesting stuff to offer, and so do you. Well, this thing with Joe Rogan and Neil Young. It's interesting in one way, and then it's really not in another. And I think, I guess me weighing in on it is to take a look at it from a couple of different perspectives. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And I'm not sitting the fence with Joe Rogan and Neil Young on issues like this. I find that too often people are looking for a right answer. And there really is no right answer. It's really the thing is, what's the most responsible thing to do? It's like when you make decisions. Sometimes you just have to make a decision. It's not necessarily a right decision, but it's a responsible decision, and it has an acceptable conclusion to it, or an outcome. And I think the issues here, aren't muddy. I think they're pretty clear. And let me outline them for you in a simple way. Number one, Joe Rogan isn't anything new. Neither is Neil Young, being an entertainer who has a point of view. And Neil Young has a tremendously long and phenomenal history as not only an entertainer, an innovative songwriter and performer, and has been in every genre of music. He's inducted into the Hall of Fame, I believe, twice. Once as an individual, and once for being part of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. He's a famous guy, and besides being famous, he's been an activist. And to really be honest with you, I mean, if being on the right side of issues is important in your activism, for the most part, in my humble opinion, yeah, I don't think he's a bleeding heart liberal or anything else like that. He's been for Farm Aid and things like that. He's a guy. He's a Canadian-born guy. As a matter of fact, I understand his mother was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, for crying out loud. I think he has very strong feelings about America, and very strong feelings about democracy and the little guy, and proper behavior. I know that he was very dissatisfied with. I believe it was President Bush originally, going to war and military adventurism, something that Joe Rogan would support him with on those things that he doesn't like either. He also, I believe it might have been his former lover or whatever, or girlfriend, or I know they're dear friends. Was Joni Mitchell was a polio victim as a kid, and so was Neil Young. And I've mentioned this on other shows when people they flip off this stuff with COVID, like, oh, come on, Well, no, it's not about masking, not masking, vaxing and not vaxing, although it sounds like it is. It's about doing the responsible thing. Uh, if you want to be one of the people that gets polio, don't take the polio vaccine. I have two cousins who were, the old-fashioned term is severely mentally retarded due to rubella, German measles. Now, both of my cousins, who, when they were pregnant with their babies, caught this going to work. And it's simple. They used to go. I lived in Brooklyn. They used to have to go to work on the train, on the D train into Manhattan, and they picked up, rubella like other people did. It's no joke when you see these guys. Handsome. Both of them happen to be. Both of the people who were affected. My second cousins were affected. Beautiful, handsome guys, and it's just a shame because, and I'm a psychologist. I mean, they really had impaired intellectual abilities, behavioral problems resulting from that. What a damn shame. Due to no vaccination being available at those times. And, you have other things with measles and things like that have been all over the world. Nobody in their right mind would do that. I'm 71, going on 72, and I certainly was a polio kid. When it first came out, man, I can remember my mother taking me, and I've said this on other shows, and seeing a little, we had the one in the cup, a little dimple in the bottom of the cup, and it had the vaccine. And did people breathe a sigh of relief? And I know people felt that way with AIDS, with treatments for AIDS. My goodness, when you see people wearing masks now, and rubber gloves, and all the procedures that you have in dentist's office and doctor's office, hello, if you're a millennial or you're a young person, that stuff wasn't around before AIDS. Yeah, doctors would wear a mask, so as not to infect you with anything. If somebody had pneumonia, they might wear one. They were universal precautions for certain diseases that were highly contagious. But AIDS, man, put the fear of God into everybody. People forget that. Man alive. You'd go to the dentist. The dentist never wore gloves. He never had a mask on. He never had a face shield on. Jesus, I can remember going to the dentist and my doctor being in the hospital for surgery in the 80s in a smoking room. Come on. So things change. So when you're looking at some of the things that we're debating, we have access to some different equipment, some different stuff that in the past wasn't politicized, wasn't part of the tribalism that we have right now. That I've gotten into on other shows, and that adds into the picture a little bit. That the scab has been pulled off our psyche, our collective mindset, where I don't think that we're thinking straight. And I think that's what Neil Young is trying to say. And he's desperate, and he's saying, hey man, some of the stuff you're talking about with this extremely popular show, Mr. Rogan, is batshit crazy, in his opinion, in Neil Young's opinion. And, when you stop and think about it, man, he has every right to say, Spotify or, NBC or MSNBC or Fox News, you guys have to be more responsible, man. And if you're not, it's called voice and exit. Like if you're working in a place and you don't think they're being honorable or fair or reasonable, you leave. If you're not going to do the right thing, I'm out of here, man. You can't use the Nuremberg defense. I was just following orders when Hitler told me to kill the Jews. It didn't hold up in Nuremberg. No. You could have said no. You could have said no. And if you think I'm getting lost in the weeds, I'm not. I think it's so shocking to a person who's a polio survivor, which is a dreaded disease that he had. That he had an open letter to President Trump, for example, saying that he thought he was a disgrace as a president. I mean, Trump was my last show about the GOP setting it up. I'm a veteran. My son's a veteran. a disabled veteran, and my grandson is currently in the military and has already been over to the Ukraine, to that area. He's a tanker of all things. Wow, what a great job to have in this day and age. But that's a whole other story. So, Neil Young has, I believe, a right and a duty if he feels that this is really serious and that somebody, and for monetary purposes or entertainment purposes, is going out there and knows, or, that this stuff is highly speculative bullshit, in his opinion. Hey, it should be vetted by Spotify, perhaps, or there should be a warning that this doesn't reflect the views of whatever it is, or maybe highly questionable, or whatever. Well, I guess that isn't done. And then people go off half-cocked, and they, listen to Joe Rogan, or listen to Neil Young, or listen to me or anybody else, and we're not authorities on those things. Okay? So here's what I'm trying to say. Neither Neil Young or Joe Rogan is an authority on this. However, there is a reasonable argument to say that, hey man, I disagree with the information you're putting out there so strongly on the grounds that it could result in somebody's death. That people can be, that's my only concern when I, take a position with somebody and say, hey man, use some universal precautions, put a mask on, do something else, whatever. It's a little inconvenient, but, save your grandpa, help me out a little bit, like I spent my entire life working for you and your family, and, do the right thing. Other people don't think that they have to do that. Now, let's flip it around for Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, like Neil Young, neither one of them is a college graduate. That doesn't mean that means anything, that they're less or more intelligent than you and I. Joe Rogan is an entertainer, and he's worked long and hard in a variety of mediums, whether it be Fear Factories, stand-up comedy, working as in martial arts, and it was an accomplished martial artist himself and everything else like that. He has a particular bent towards the world about working out and eating things healthy, and as fighters do, they shake off injuries or whatever. I understand he's been on special diets for health problems. The point is, I'm not criticizing Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's an adult. He's a very successful entertainer who's worked very, very hard. But here's the key. Like Neil Young, he is an entertainer. Neil Young is an entertainer. Joe Rogan or Neil Young, in their forms of entertainment, can go out and promote anything they want. But there should be some element of responsibility in it. Now, this goes right back to when I was saying sometimes there's not a right answer. I believe, and I would hope that you would, that both Joe Rogan and Neil Young have a right to freedom of speech. If Joe Rogan, wants to peddle whatever he's peddling, and I shouldn't even use the word peddle, if he wants to say whatever he says or he has personal beliefs, fine. But he should be intelligent enough and responsible enough to say that, hey, these are controversial things that I'm saying, and, really check it out in your own mind. I'm a psychologist, and I see people doing counseling and coaching all over the place, and they're not qualified to do it. But they get these bogus certifications and things like that, and there's no certification required for that. A person's a high school graduate, they talk well, they help you, they motivate you, whatever. Hey man, I feel very uncomfortable with that. I feel very uncomfortable with me putting out something for that, without you seeing a doctor or seeing another professional or whatever else, having a team of people kind of check things out to make sure that before you see me, as it were, if I was doing some coaching with you or counseling with you, I would know that your organic problems were looked at, and you're not having a medical problem, a tumor in your head. That's what a good coach or a counselor or a clinician does. And I know that. But check out what really happens. You get all these disclaimers and everything so that people can start playing with you and jump into stuff. And it's not, in my opinion, a responsible thing to do. But it's my opinion. I just gave you the reasons why. Now, I don't think Joe Rogan did anything criminal. He's an entertainer. We have a long history of in our country on television. We have Jesus Christ. You have is it okay for Stephen Colbert every night? I'll use a liberal thing, or John Oliver endlessly to give his mind that mind-numbing bullshit, or Trevor Noah or Jon Stewart. I mean, they're entertainers. They're funny guys and everything else like that. But sometimes it gets who wants to hear all that crap from them? You want to hear some comedy. I love George Carlin. And there were times with George Carlin, it was like, man, I mean, how much darker are you going to get? Carlin. I mean, you're coming out with a lot of stuff. I understand why now. He's such a wonderful observer of human beings. He became disheartened by the human condition, by what we're seeing right now. So, what could have been done to avoid this? Well, when I said this is before, when I was growing up, even when I was in my 40s and 50s, look at Dan Rather. He was booted off his hosting thing that he had worked for years because of the thing with George Bush, and supposedly he had forged something with the Air Force's reserve thing, and he got a bogus piece of information. And he and the woman newscaster who provided him that stuff, she lost her job, and he essentially got demoted. His career took a man because the stuff wasn't properly vetted. Other people, at different points of times have been sued for, libel for things like that. Now, I don't think Joe Rogan did anything that was libelous. I've seen his shows on stuff like that, and I think it's a lot of misinformation or biased or slanted information. And I see the same thing with Bill Maher on Real Time. I mean, he doesn't want to lose money, so he wants COVID to be gone because his concerts are canceled for the past 2 years. It's sickening to me. I'm not a conservative, but I'm a rational thinker. I'm also not a liberal on one kind of an end that, it's just I'm blinded to reason. I consider myself a responsible person, probably like most of you. I think Joe Rogan, due to the vast amount of money and the vast number of viewers, when I've seen his show, I've seen his show many, many times. Occasionally it's interesting. He gets topics that's been shows like that forever. Tom Snyder. There was shows, Alan Burke years ago, Joe Pine for any of you older people, Maury Povich, Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, for Christ's sakes, that guy's running for Congress. Come on. They become famous. I mean, in our country, our population, you and I, we look to these people as experts, and they're not. Neil Young isn't an expert, and Joe Rogan is an expert. But here's the rub. Joe Rogan has the right, in my opinion, to free speech. And if he's sending out silly bullshit out there, and I think he does many times, then that's up to you and I as individuals to realize that we don't get our medical information from Joe Rogan. That's an entertainment show. This is how the guy makes money. He's an entertainer. He's an entertainer. This is a guy with the Fear Factor, where people had to jump in a vat of pig guts or something. Come on, man. I mean, think of what we do for money. Big Brother. People are obnoxious. Survivor, lying and cheating. He's an entertainer. This is what people want. They want bread and circuses. So of course Joe Rogan's going to go out there if people reinforcing him, and he's making all kinds of money like he's never made in his career. On the other hand, give Neil Young a break. This guy's a long history of being a very responsible political activist for people on all sides of the coin. This is nothing new. Whether it be for farm aid or for, inappropriate military escapades by the United States military, getting involved in places they shouldn't. And his work has been for the benefit of the soldiers and their families and things like that, and other issues like that. And some of them, many, many people agree with, and I'm sure that some of them other people don't, and he's entitled to that. But just as Joe Rogan is entitled to do his stuff And I guess he's entitled legally if he's being irresponsible. There's no law against what he's doing. How do we make people stop doing things like that? Well, there's nothing new in people saying, we're going to withdraw our support for your business. Isn't that what Martin Luther King did when they would boycott buses, with Rosa Parks and things like that? Isn't that what Mahatma Gandhi did in India, where they would boycott things and everything else like that? So boycotting is pretty normal stuff. Isn't that what the United States right now is threatening to Russia in terms of instead of getting into a shooting war with them, they're saying, "Hey man, we're going to have some severe kind of sanctions on you." It's essentially their boycotts and other kinds of behaviors that are nonviolent, and that's what Mr. Young is doing. That's what is happening with Neil Young. He has every right to do that, and he has every right to round up as many people as he can and to say, hey, come on, let's pull out of this stuff and put some pressure on, because people, in our opinion, are going to die from that. Neil Young isn't picking on Joe Rogan because he has a vendetta against Joe Rogan. He was a polio survivor. He sees this as a similar illness. He sees it an extension of Trumpism and alternate realities and things like that, and he's concerned. He's 5 or 6 years older than I am. So from his generation, his set of values is pretty different from Joe Rogan's. Now, I hope I've been fair to Joe Rogan, and I hope I've been fair to Neil Young. I mean, I think that's the crux of the matter. Now, what would be the more sensible thing? The more sensible thing would be for both people to understand that both people are entertainers, that they're not the CDC or the World Health Organization and all that kind of stuff. And even with the CDC and the World Health Organization, I'm a clinician, and you better make your own decisions based on some careful research, even from them. So you don't want to be taking, medical advice from the Joe Rogan experience. It might be interesting. It might be something you want to pursue, but you don't use that, in my opinion, as the final thing. Nor from singers and entertainers. If they have a good point, you say, "Yeah, oh, that's a good one, Neil. That's a good one, Joe. That's a good one. Maybe that medicine that is controversial and they're not okaying really is okay." I think if people took the attitude, whether it be Joe Rogan or it was Neil Young or Spotify or any organization, said, hey, look, we believe in freedom of speech. There shouldn't be, people shouldn't be canceled for what they think or speak, in my opinion. But there should be an element of personal responsibility, number one, that if you're, again, saying questionable stuff, then you just own it and say, hey, look, this is controversial, man. Because people are on there all the time talking about flying saucers, Bigfoot, all kinds of crazy medical procedures. We have commercials all the time swearing, you want your prostate to get better, you want this. It's bullshit, half of it. And experts coming on giving you bullshit. So buyer beware. That's our responsibility, to do the right thing. But with these guys, they have to be able to do their thing. Mr. Rogan to do his thing, and it could have been done a little better, and Spotify could have done it by vetting it and by having disclaimers and responsibility kinds of overseeing. And I think then that people who feel that that this is really wrong and are very, I would say, well-intended activists like Neil Young in this particular case, hey man, they don't have to pull the last resort of saying, pull me out. But his option, just like Joe Rogan's option, he should not be canceled. Neil Young has every right to exert pressure against something that he thinks is dangerous and immoral. That's how our country or any environment improves. There's give and there's take. There's there's pressure on areas are exerted that people think are seriously wrong. I don't think that Neil Young is being frivolous in that. Like somebody else wouldn't be if they were pro or against a war, or they want us to be more involved in human events, or saying, hey, back off of that shit. there's many sides to the story. But both of these guys should be able to do their thing. And however it works out, you know? But what do I think? The bottom line is I think that there'll be a political pressure or whatever it is, but money talks and everybody walks, baby. And ultimately, it's the cash that's going to influence this kind of deal. You know? That's sad. I wish somebody would address that. But that's addressed by you and I, what our personal values are, and I've got other things about that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this show. It's about 26 minutes. I went a little bit longer. But I hope that this, is a show that lets us know that we don't have to get involved with cancel culture with everything else. And we don't have to get involved with hating Neil Young or hating Joe Rogan. They're two people who have worked a long, hard life to get their product out there to people and have been very successful. And part of Joe Rogan's success is coming up with controversial things like this. And part of Neil Young's belief system and part of his life from being seriously affected by a similar kind of illness like this is, having had polio and being a very well-intended person and in a position to do something about it. So, all's fair when you're trying to make a better world. That's all I'm saying, man. Well, if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm not worried about being canceled. I don't have 11 million viewers, to be sure. But maybe someday I will, and you'll have to listen to me, and I'll have crazy guests on. But I hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you did, hit the like button on it. I hope you found everything was balanced and not full of hatred for anybody, including President Trump or Joe Biden or anybody else like that. Come on. Don Henley, who talked about songwriters, had a great one. And he said, it's the heart of the matter. Remember that song? I should post it. It's all about forgiveness, man. The more that we see how we have these common rights and the changes and the values that we need to have are pretty damn simple. We're not seeing the forest for the trees, man. This is when more people should be able to sit down and just talk about it and present their views and then come up with a good compromise. And hopefully that's what will happen in the long run. Okay? Well, have a good one. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe, hit the bell so you get your thing, and give it a like and a comment. You can get me in the link, Wanglund, SWANGLUND, @gmail.com, brother. All right. Well, have a good one. And we've got some other interesting shows coming up. So catch you on the flip-flop, man. Bye-bye.